Hey everyone, welcome back to Kali Plants. We're back at the greenhouse with another video, and for this one we're gonna be unboxing a plant that I bought recently, and also I'm gonna be featuring succulents on the Asphodelaceae family. So I may have murdered the word Asphodelaceae. So that's probably the name of the family of these succulents that you're seeing here. So they're not part of the Crassulaceae family, because we all know the Crassulaceae family includes the Echeverias, the sedums, pachyphytums, and the Graptopetalums. So those are very different succulents. This is also another very different family of succulents. So this is the Asphodelaceae family. Now these plants actually includes the aloes, and we generally call them aloes. So what you're seeing here, but some of them are not aloes, but they are related plants to the aloes. So that's what I'm gonna be showing you later on in this video. But first, we're gonna be unboxing this box. Okay, so I'm gonna be just opening this up. So I hope that the camera gets everything. So just so you know where I got this package, this was purchased from the Green Zone Facebook page. So they're one of the older sellers here in the Philippines, and Green Zone actually sells some of the more rare, more expensive succulents. So if you're living in the Philippines, you can check out their Facebook page. So they're ones that really sell these really expensive rare succulents, and most usually they're selling these rare types of cacti. So if you want to check out their page, you can look them up on Facebook. So now this is the package, one of the rarer succulents that I got. So this is probably one of the more expensive succulents that I have here. Okay, so it's a big size. So wow, nice. Okay, the packaging is really nice. They still included the pot. So that's a rare thing here in the Philippines, because usually when we buy our succulents, they come here unrooted, but this one came with a pot. So you can see this is their logo, Green Zone. Okay, so let me just open this up. I wonder what kind of apple this piece of packaging came from. Okay, so here it is. Okay, let me just open this up close to the camera so you can see. So you can pretty much guess what this one is already. Wow, that's so nice. So pretty. Now, I'm not really a collector of Gasterias and aloes, but this one, I've been wanting this plant for a very long time now, and this is actually a very rare succulent here in the Philippines. You don't see, actually you can see sellers selling them, but they're very expensive. So when I found out that Green Zone had posted this plant, I immediately took one. I think it was the only plant that they had for sale, so I already mined it, and it's now here. So this is a Gaster aloe green ice. Okay, is that right? So this is a cross between a Gasteria and an aloe. I've been researching on these plants and I've been liking them more. So now we're gonna do this introduction video on aloe varieties and their related species, the related plants, so that you can have an idea on what you would like to, on what you might want to collect later on. So I have my list here of the classification of the succulents under the Asphodelaceae family. So I'm going to be showing you an image. Maybe I will do a graphic of this list. Basically, the main ones that we know are the aloes, Haworthias, and the Gasterias. So these are the most common identification when it comes to these succulents, but there are actually more different names for them. Right now, they're being separated in very different genuses or genii or genera. Or I think the genera is the correct term. So I think we're gonna start with the Asphodelaceae family. It's actually under the order Asparagalis, which we know from the word Asparagalis. It means it's related to asparagus. So their flower stalks actually resembles something like an asparagus. If you've seen an asparagus before, it's a type of vegetable. And under that Asphodelaceae family, we have the Asphodeloideae subfamily, and under that we have the tribe that is Aloe. So now under the Aloe tribe, we have our aloes, Haworthias, and Gasterias. But now aloe is being separated into very different genuses, genera. So they're being separated already in different genera, and there are actually 7 different genera under the name aloe, and there are actually 3 different genera under the name Haworthia, and only 1 genus that is Gasteria. And we're gonna go over them one by one. We're gonna start with aloes. So I have my aloes here. These I believe are all pure aloes, so they're not mixed with other aloes. So this one is one of my older aloes here in my care. This is aloe peglerae, and this one grows really big. So we have that. Okay, we have our aloe snowflake. So this is probably a Rauhii hybrid, Rauhii hybrid. Okay, so we also have another Rauhii hybrid right here. Okay, really beautiful, really stunning. We have our big aloe here, which I believe, okay, I will just be posting the name probably on the screen, but you can see it's already potted in, and I've already watered it, and I think that it's starting to absorb water again. So I've kept it dry for very long because I didn't want it to die. So you can see that the leaves shrunk, but I believe that once this gets watered a couple of times, it will probably plump back up again. So that's really beautiful. We have here our aloe brevifolia, so you can see. Okay, this is a true aloe. Okay, now the ones that are not true aloes, so this one is probably a type of climbing aloe, which is aloe-yampelus. So this is probably an aloe-yampelus. So aloe-yampelus plants, they look like shrubs. They grow upright and then they tend to climb on stuff. So that's how they grow. They're like vine type aloes, and some of them are also creeping on the ground. So that's how aloe-yampelus look like. We also have our aloe-dendron, which is another separated genus from the aloe name. So aloe-dendrons are actually tree aloes. They grow this big, really thick trunks, and they grow very tall, and they're not propagated by a stem cutting. So if you have one, it will stay a single plant for its entire life. You cannot propagate it, or you can maybe propagate it by a seed. So by its flowers, when it produces seeds, you can probably propagate those aloe-dendron varieties. Now we also have our aristalo. So aristalo is not a hybrid. So the lace aloe that is commonly being sold here in the Philippines, that is actually a separate genus already from the aloes, and it's now called Aristalo. Now Aristalo, it only has one species in that genus, and that is the lace aloe. That is the sole species in that genus. Now also separated from the aloes is the Astroloba genus. These are what I would call stacking aloes, because they look like barbecue, the Crassulaceae barbecue, the stacking crassula plant, but they are aloes. So they grow upright, and then they grow stacking leaves that doesn't get very wide. They look like little towers of aloes. After the Astroloba, we have our Goni aloe. These aloes typically resemble Gasterias in the thickness of their leaves, and I believe that Goni aloes are much more darker in color compared with their other aloe relatives. The next genus, which is separated from the main aloe genus, is the Kumara genus, and that is the fan aloes. So I think probably there are only a few species under that genus, so they're no longer called aloes, they're already called kumaras, and their leaves actually resemble aloes, but they also produce these really thick trunks, so they resemble much like our tree aloes, and then they grow upright. So that's how kumaras look like. So they're already separated from the main aloe genus. Now moving on from the aloes, we're gonna go to our Haworthias, and the Haworthias, the ones that are already being called Haworthias right now, are the window type Haworthias. So I'll be grabbing my Haworthia here, truncata, I believe. So this is a variegated truncata, and you can see that it's got windows on its leaves. So that is one way that we identify Haworthias, if they've got windows on their leaves. But I could also say that some Haworthias under the Haworthia genus also don't have those windows, and some have these really colored windows. They're no longer very translucent. So you can see here, this one already has some variation to its leaves, so it's not very translucent anymore. I think probably because this was bred with other types of Haworthias. Now we also have our very common Haworthia cymbiformis right here. So this is the probably what they call cathedral window Haworthia, because of their windows on the tips of their leaves, so which is really nice. Okay, now separated from that is already our Haworthiopsis, and this is one type of Haworthiopsis. You can see that it resembles the shape of our other Haworthias, but it doesn't have windows on its leaves, and it also has very different patterns on its leaves is get these stripes. So this is probably a fasciata or an attenuata, so I'm not really sure, but this is already separated from the Haworthias. They're already called Haworthiopsis. Now also separated from the Haworthia genus is the Tulista genus. So those are what we call pearl plants. So the Haworthiopsis we call those zebra plants, but the Tulista plants we call them pearl plants. They can resemble our zebra plants, but they are actually very different also. So they have these round patterns on their leaves, so their leaves have these dots, and some Tulista plants also doesn't have any markings on their leaves, so they're kind of bare. So that's how Tulistas look like. And also Tulista flowers are very different with our Haworthiopsis. Haworthiopsis and Haworthia flowers resemble each other, but the Tulista ones, they have color on their flowers. They're more like purplish gray in color. So that's how the flowers of Tulista look like. And our other Haworthiopsis and our other Haworthia flowers, they're more like white colored flowers which has two leaves. So that's how the flowers of the Haworthias look like. Okay. Finally, the last genus that we haven't talked about is the Gasterias, and you can see here that I don't have any Gasterias in my collection yet. So I've been actually looking at sellers online, and I've been thinking about buying more Gasterias soon because we're getting less sun now. So I think I'm gonna be focusing on plants that need less sun. So these plants actually need less sun than our other Crassulaceae plants. So they can tolerate a little bit of shade, and then they can still grow even if you grow them in a little bit of shade. And Gasterias are one exceptional example of that. Gasterias look like ox tongues, so that's how they're commonly referred as. And their flowers actually look like aloe flowers that grow upright and then they hang downwards. So that's how the flowers of the Gasteria look like. They actually resemble our other aloe flowers, but they grow on stalks that look like Haworthia flowers. So that's how Gasteria flowers look like. Now, you might be wondering, the plant that I bought, which genus does this belong to? So this is already an intergeneric hybrid between a Gasteria and an aloe. So this could look like a little bit like a Gasteria, but it also has features of an aloe, so it can grow like in this rosette type of shape. So it's already a hybrid. So as you know, with our other Crassulaceae plants, they can be bred intergenerically. So we have our Echeverias and sedum crosses, which we call Sediverias. So these plants can also be hybrid with each other, I believe, but not everything. So I think some of them might not cross with each other really well, but I think that since they belong in the same family, since they belong in the same tribe, that they can pretty much breed with each other. So I think there's also a little bit less hybrids of aloes around cross with our other genuses. So this is one that is crossed with the Haworthia. This is our Haworthia black gem. So if I'm not mistaken, so if I'm correct, this is also a cross between an aloe and a Haworthia. Now let me just add also that the difference of our Crassulaceae succulents with this type of succulents, most of these actually come from Africa, so from southern Africa, from different parts of Africa, while our other Crassulaceae succulents, they come from Mexico. So they belong in very different places in the earth. Now you might be wondering, how do these compare with our other Crassulaceae succulents? And I would say that these ones are priced much higher compared to those Echeverias cryptopetalums, because these ones doesn't propagate via leaf very well. So you can probably propagate them, some of them via leaf, but they're really not that good at propagating via leaf, and some of them are actually propagated via their pups. So I believe, as with this one, it cannot be propagated via leaves. So that's what I think is the difference with this plant, which is why it's much more expensive with our other succulents, because they take longer times to grow. So if you're planning to buy succulents for business, if you're planning to grow them long term, and if you don't want to have a plant that really drops down on its price once it gets introduced to the market, because with our other succulents, with Echeverias, once they get introduced to the market, their price goes down very quickly. So this one, since they take longer times to propagate, the price doesn't go down very quickly as with our other Echeverias. Let me also add that compared with our other Crassulaceae succulents, these plants are much more suitable for tropical climate. So if you're living in the Philippines or probably you're living in India, so if you're living in a tropical climate, these ones are much more suitable for you because since they come from Africa, they can tolerate a lot more heat compared with our other Crassulaceae, and they can also tolerate a lot more shade. So they don't need tons and tons of light to grow. Actually, Gasterias can be grown at just a southern facing window. So if you've got a very bright window, you can just put this plant and you can just water it when it's really dry and it will still grow. It doesn't need tons and tons of light. So you can see here it doesn't have that farina. So because of that dark colored leaves, it actually absorbs light even in the dark, so it can take in more light. Those ones that are brighter in color, much like with our other aloes here, so this aloe has some farina covering it, so this one can tend to need much more light with our compared to our darker colored ones. So because it has farina to retain the thickness of the powdery covering the leaves, it will need more sun compared with our other darker colored plants. So this is a really dark colored succulent. It can tolerate a lot more shade, but I would not place it in a very dark location, so I would still give it light, but just diffused light, not really direct sun. If you give this too much sun, it will get dry very quickly and it will also get burned and it will shrivel up. So that's how different these plants are compared with our other Crassulaceae succulents. Now, if you find this video really interesting, if you find these succulents really interesting, I actually have some aloe varieties still posted on my Facebook page. So if you want to buy some rare varieties, you can check them out on my Facebook page. And also, you can follow the Green Zone Facebook page on Facebook, so you can see when they will be posting their plants next. So they post pretty much very rarely right now, so they don't post often because I think that the plants that they're growing take some time to grow, so you might not find that they post a lot. But once they post, they have these really expensive, really rare varieties that you won't find anywhere else, so you can just look them up on Facebook. And if you really like the information that I gave you, I really researched a lot when it comes to this. Actually, I haven't memorized them all. I still need to make a list to be reminded of them. So if you really like the information that I gave you, please make sure to hit the thumbs up and also to subscribe on this channel down below. And I think that's about it for this video, guys. If you want to see me make more care guides about these plants, please comment it down below. If you want any other specific succulent that you're seeing here, if you want me to make a care guide on that, I will make a care guide on that. Just comment it down below and I will try to do it as soon as I see your comment. And I think that's about it for this video, guys. I will see you on the next one. Bye bye.